Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and tonight I'm joined by Sean Connolly. We're here to talk about Celtic 2, Dundee United 0. And there was a couple of guys on the lunchtime bulletin, Sean, who predicted 2-0. And I tell you what, it was such a dominant performance. But there was a few moments in that second half you had to remind yourself we're only a goal up here. Dundee United could have fashioned something out of a counter-attack. But a very professional performance, and plenty of songs were sang, and I don't see anybody having an issue with any of them. I even heard Eduard's name getting sang in the second half.
Yeah, do you want me to cover the performance first or the song sheet? Because they're both quite big talking points.
They are talking points, yeah. We wondered how it would go tonight with that, because the focus had all been on the aftermath of the weekend's game. I think the Green Brigade, they dealt with it perfectly, didn't they?
Yeah, the first half was very entertaining. Larson, I've lost track of all the names. Larson, Mulgrew, Paddy McCourt, Jota, Jinky, Tommy Burns. Second half, there was a few out there as well. But the one that I picked up and when it got to injury time, they started singing Martin O'Neill's song, which was felt like a pretty direct response to what Rodgers said regarding if they were singing another manager's name, I'd take that as disrespect. Well, we'll see how, if he responds to that, hopefully he just laughs it off, because based on the 20 songs they'd sang before that, it was supposed to be a little tongue-in-cheek dig, and then they moved on to the Kieran Tierney one after that. So hopefully Rodgers doesn't respond to it, and that's it, done with and put to bed.
You would hope so. You would absolutely hope so, because it's just a distraction. Celtic obviously winning 2-0 convincingly tonight. The other game, Kilmarnock 0, Motherwell 0. You look at the top of that table, it might have been -7 at Celtic Park tonight, but it's now -16 in Govan, Sean. And this is the interesting thing: the disappointment of losing that derby. But you look at that league title, that table tonight, and you're just thinking, we are romping this league. And I mean, I don't see it as entitled. I really don't. I don't see it as a fan base being spoiled. I just think that, you know what, there's nothing wrong with wanting the highest possible standards, because it's us as a football club that have set them.
Yeah. Look, it's been a good season. We definitely can't get away from that. And we're just racking up wins. Obviously, one blip and then 2 games which are just normal variation in terms of draws, and apart from that, we've had a lot of very effective wins and performances. We were brilliant for an hour maybe tonight. Then when we make subs, it kind of unbalances the team, and the way to the response to rebalance that was to bring Palm on, which curiously somewhat worked. I'll say it restored the balance to the team, but then at that point in the game, Dundee United were doing the tactic that we predicted beforehand, which was, to keep it to 0 or 1 goal difference, and then start pressing in the last 20 minutes, and that's exactly what they did. They really started pressing high at that point to try and snatch a goal, and there was a couple of tense moments. Schmeichel makes a couple of good saves. There's one where the header kind of bounces off 2 players and goes back to Schmeichel, and if it goes in another direction, there's a Dundee United player free at the back post. So at 1-0, I wouldn't say didn't sense nerves from the crowd, and I didn't personally feel nervous, but it was certainly not done with at that point. It was still in the balance at that point, and then the last goal there from to make it 2-0 from Hatate, you can see the difference. Like if you look at that moment versus any moment from 20 minutes prior in the game, and there was just way less Dundee United players in the box at that point, and it gives a chance for 1, Palma to get a cross in, 2, Maeda to be absolutely free at the back post, and then 3, for Bernardo to actually play a dummy to Hatate, who finds space in the box. So like, if that move happens earlier in the game, then it's not a goal, because there's a lot more Dundee United players in there. So it's essentially the second goal does kind of come from the counter attack. And I thought we were much more flowing and attacking, efficiently attacking in the first half. A lot of bouncing off Ida, but there was just so much congestion in there, and the goal does end up coming from a less attractive move, but there's just more space, and there was a good finish from Hatate to make it 2-0.
It was, and there's some interesting points coming through about Rio, about Ida, the performance of Engels. My biggest concern actually is something we spoke about in the first half, the half time rather, after the first half, where we were unaware going into the game that Kuhn had pulled up in the warm up. That was confirmed on Celtic TV. He pulled a muscle. Now, that's what's happened to James Forrest, and he's out for six weeks, Sean, right? And you're looking at Kuhn. He has been the star man this season. Engels is coming at it in a different way, but in terms of goals and assists, he would be sorely missed, and he's injured again. So I'm looking forward to getting an update on that, because your next option is Yang. Your option behind him seems to be Luke McCowan playing out in the right. And then, of course, we brought on Palmer to come over to the left. It turns into a precarious situation very, very quickly, doesn't it, on the right-hand side?
Yeah, and it definitely didn't look like it worked with Luke McCowan on the wing. I believe in the past he's played on the left wing, so I guess that's in different systems as well. So, you know, you can kind of compare that, but it's apple and oranges, and he did not look effective on the right. The team did not look effective with McCowan on the right, and it was harsh that he got hooked in a sense, because he had a sensational first half. To be honest, he was, like, apart from Engels, he was the best on ground in the first half. So no criticism for McCowan. I just don't. We do need wingers, and I think if Kuhn's injury is more than just a precaution, then that kind of really makes the need to sign another winger quite urgent. The boy at left back for Dundee United actually looked like a good player tonight, but I don't know if that's because he's actually good. Yeah, I think he was a free transfer from Cheltenham, Will Ferry, and Yang never got past him once. He had to keep coming inside. The guy physically absolutely had Yang's number, and he had a good set piece as well. So when McCowan went out there, he didn't do much better either against him. I don't think that the guy is that good, the Dundee United left back, but he's certainly, we had no change out of him tonight.
We made him look good. And this is the thing. I mean, after a comprehensive victory like this evening, I don't want to pinpoint anything that would be deemed kind of like negative, but what then happens is we're going into the young boys game. You're kind of hoping that we can negotiate the league games that are coming up thick and fast, Sean, and the Kilmarnock game in the Cup. And then you've got the young boys game, which is absolutely a must win. And the biggest part of our attacking play has come down the right-hand side from Nicholas Kuhn. Obviously, I'm not going to jump the gun. I don't know the extent of the injury and how long he's going to be out. But we could be sitting in a situation there where you're going into that game with a third choice right winger, and that's frustrating. There's nothing you can do about it, because you can't bring someone in, have them registered to play in Europe. I think we spoke about, is there a 3-day window at the very end of January where
no, you're not allowed to. I mean, the window is open till the 3rd of Feb or something, but you're not allowed to change any registrations until after the league phase is finished,
after the Villa game.
Yeah, so wherever the squad is now, that's it for young boys and Villa. And if we sell someone, then we're just a man down.
You're a man down, and that's the frustration. And it's a bit of a legacy, I think, of that summer transfer window, which I don't want to labour, because Yang, you're looking at him, you're thinking you've been thrown in. You hope that he can pull a performance out the bag, and like you say, he didn't. He absolutely didn't. You know, and I think that it gets to the point, and maybe with Palmer, although he's getting a bit of support on the comments, it gets to the point where you cut your losses sometimes with players. We spoke about it earlier on today with the seldom seen Mike Novroski. 9 minutes this season cost us £4.3 million. Move these guys on, free up the space. But it's a slight concern, maybe a wee bit too early to call for the young boys game, but it's a slight concern on the right-hand side. Sweet 16 ahead, absolutely. And this is why sometimes we get called entitled and spoilt brats and bedwetters and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, we are 16 points ahead. But the performance against Dundee United at Tannadice or the performance against Rangers at Ibrox still wasn't good enough. I mean, they don't have to be exclusive, Sean. Both of those statements can be correct and true. Stephen, you're in. Rio is often a nightmare when he starts games, but often comes on as a super sub and performs really well. Do that against the current Buns, and we will all be happy. You're not the only person that's coming in to say that. Barry McCluskey says the same. Hatate more effective as a sub again. Is he an enigma, Sean? Is Rio Hatate that player you never know what you're going to get?
I think that adjective has been used many times to describe Reo Hatate as an enigmatic player. Yeah, and that's like a lot of players in our team are like that, and that's probably why they're at Celtic. If they were consistently given the best things that we've seen from them, then they would probably be off for 25 million, like Matt O'Reilly. And that's probably why Hatate is still here and receiving bids from the French Ligue 1 for 10 million instead of from the EPL for 25. So obviously we've seen it. He can do great things. That was a great goal. He's done a couple of them this season. But then you also see, you're talking about the 0-0 Dundee United game where he's through and goal, could square it, could shoot, does shoot, puts it wide the target. So, you get both sides of that from Reo Hatate. I think Brendan Rodgers mentioned fatigue the other day, and the fact that Hatate has been out of the team maybe suggested that that's a factor as well. But yeah, look, he's a good player on his day, and he did well when he came on today. I don't think I'm really adding too much to the conversation by saying that he's an up and down player. I think we've got a lot of body of evidence to see that now. It's well established, and that's why there's always a deficiency in players that stay for a long time at Celtic. Otherwise, they'd be gone, and that's his deficiency.
When we're maybe looking a wee bit ahead to the big games at the end of the month, Sean, with this glut of games in between in the league, and you're looking at your best team, your starting 11. And I know that the conversation's kind of been done a wee bit on Acsom this season, where some people would suggest there is no such thing as the best starting 11. And the team that they picked tonight against Dundee United could well be a different team you would pick against Young Boys. But is Reo Hatate, in your view, if you were to pick what you think is our best, our strongest starting 11, is Hatate still getting a jersey?
It's complicated because, as you mentioned earlier, Engels and Bernardo are now in a situation where they both play on the same side, effectively. So for me, certainly in the last 6 weeks-ish, Bernardo, who did excellent tonight when he came on, he would get the uncredited assist for Hatate's goal for his dummy through his legs. And Engels and Bernardo would be my preferred, but then it becomes an issue of balance. And we talked about it at half time, like Hatate and McCowan are now building up the understanding with the right wingers and the right back, so that's kind of what's preventing that. But yeah, look, I do think Hatate is better than McCowan in that sense. Yeah, even though McCowan again had a very good game tonight. And I think we are a little bit spoiled in that we've got ahead of McGregor, we've got actually 4 very good central midfielders to fill those 2 spots, and that's a good position to be in. Not a position we're in with the wingers, and that's often why that raises a concern in that position.
Yeah, and it's one of these things where you're looking at a player like Bernardo, and I think he probably feels a wee bit unlucky, Sean, because he has had some brilliant performances this season, but he finds himself on the kind of fringes of this team at the moment. And then at the same time, Arne Engels is really coming into his own, and I want to kind of focus on him. He's getting to the point where it was commented earlier that he was growing into the Celtic jersey. He's dominating games. He's orchestrating games now. He's growing in confidence. And he is looking every inch of the player that we brought into the football club. I spoke last week about the goals and assists that he's bringing to the party, but his game's about so much more than that. It's not just set pieces, is it? I mean, I think that the physicality is sometimes overlooked with Engels. He's a big physical player. What did you make of that? It was almost like a body slam. It was a WWF move, old school in the first half, where he just throws the boy to the ground and just gets up as if he never did it. He does have the physicality, doesn't he? Yeah,
I actually thought there was a couple of fouls he committed that I thought he was lucky to not get yellow carded, actually. But that's something he needs to add, that kind of dark art to his game, and he seems to be doing that. But yeah, he does. He tries to meg the guy, doesn't come off, so he just pulls him down. It was very cute, is the kind of euphemism that you would use. But he's shown a lot in the sense that he's doing runs in behind. He's got a great delivery from set piece. He's now in the last few games he's shown a real resilience in defending and winning the ball back. He moves the ball quickly. He's got a great touch. He even had a few through balls into the box tonight in tight windows. So he's shown a lot. The only thing that was really missing tonight was a goal, but I just think that Yeah, I mean, he's not really had any goals from open play apart from the one that I think was a tap in. I can't remember who it was against, but it was a relatively close range goal. So I think that'll probably be the next thing that he adds to his game is the goal scoring threat, and hopefully that he does add that.
Yeah, and I think he will. I mean, when we are looking ahead, obviously, we want to take one game at a time and all the cliches. When we are looking ahead, I think my biggest concern is on the wing at the moment when we go into the Champions League, because it's one of the ones, Sean, where you look back at some of the performances that we had and some of the potentially missed opportunities when you go to Croatia and when you've got Bruges at home and we don't get the wins that we thought maybe we would have got. What you're trying to do, I think, in the next few games is to build a head of steam, but build that momentum that we keep talking about. Do you think we've got a bit of that back after the Rangers game?
I don't know if 2 games counts as momentum per se, particularly when they're 2 home games. But I think, ahead of young boys, we do have another 3. I think it's 3 more league games. Before that, I can't remember if the cup games before or after. That might be as well.
I think
before. Yeah. So we've got a few games to build momentum. I wouldn't say. I'd say it's too early to call it. But tonight's performance was certainly better than the last 2. So it's trending positively, I would say, based on tonight's evidence, and that's hopefully going to continue to do so. I'm reluctant to. It's not enough data to say that it's ahead of steam, I don't think, unfortunately, but it's a positive trend tonight.
Yeah, it definitely is. Mark McMonigal, only negatives are we still need a bit more from Ida. Probably still needs a run of games. It does. I do agree with that. I think he does to get that sharpness back. Mark, who knows what Brendan will do in the next game when it comes to who plays up top, though. It doesn't seem. He seems quite rigid in how we're going to play, though, Sean. It doesn't seem as though he's going to try anything different up top, is it? He's always going to play that one man up top. There's been moments where we've made a change and we've ended up with Kyogo and Ida on the park at the same time for a short period of time in the second half. But he's not going to change that. So it's going to be tough for him to get a run of games. If he gets a run of games, then how does that affect Kyogo? Bit of a double-edged sword, if you ask me. Going back to the question I asked you about Rio, who is your number 9? Who's your first choice centre forward at the moment?
I think on the last couple of weeks' evidence, it's got to be Ida. But I don't think it's clear cut. I think Kyogo goes back in the next game. I think we've been in a situation for most of the season where one of them plays 60 minutes, then another plays 30, and that might be for 2 games in a row, and then the third game, the other one will be in starting. Somebody might prove me wrong, but I don't believe either of them have started 3 games in a row, not that I can remember anyway. So I'd expect Kyogo to start the next game. And I do think that Ida was in tonight, having played 2 games, starting 2 games in a row, does indicate that he is currently first choice, but I don't think it's a significant difference. I think Ida offers more with his back to goal than Kyogo does. Kyogo offers effectively nothing with his back to goal at times. Even though he is a very good striker and does have that X factor that Adam Ida doesn't necessarily exhibit as much. So I don't. Yeah, I'm not going to be critical of either of them. We're in a great position with two first choice strikers, effectively that are both very effective strikers. They're not scoring as many goals as the wingers, but I think that's just part of the system we play. That's just the way it is. The first goal tonight comes from a rebound. McCowan takes a shot, goalkeeper saves it, and he does it at the back post. If that's where it spills into the centre of the box, and that's where Maeda's run to. So it's not a problem for me. I'm happy.
It's not a problem because when you're looking again at that league table, goal difference 50. We've scored 57 league goals this season. It's not as though we are hard up for goals at the moment. And, it might have been an issue had we been. But again, we've spoken about this many, many times before, Sean. Brendan Rodgers likes to spread the goals out. He doesn't want one talismanic figure scoring 40, 50 goals a season. And you've seen that when he came in the first time round when Lee Griffiths had scored 42 the previous season. And that's not what Brendan was all about. And before you know it, Scott Sinclair's chipping in the goals, etc. Last season, of course, it was Matt O'Reilly. This season, it's been Nicholas Kuhn. And I think that when you look at Callum McGregor's records in terms of per minute, he's having his most prolific season in a Celtic jersey this campaign as well. Henrik McLarsson, Yang and Palmer playing, but no Bailly. Well, Imagine Greg Taylor was taking off the night. I think the Green Brigade would give him a standing ovation, Henrik. And Brendan probably didn't want to throw another grenade. The Urban Culture, Green Brigade, great crack tonight. I agree with you. What else could they do? And there was the re-emergence of some songs we've not heard for a long time, Sean. We've got a great songbook. And they went through a lot of the ones that was Stuart Armstrong. Was that sang tonight? I never heard that one.
It's hard to hear them sometimes. Yeah, I wish they would do songs like that more often. To be honest, to me, it's like when I was at the game on Boxing Day, it was like it was Merry Christmas, F the Huns, and then they jumped to some song about the IRA, and then back to Merry Christmas, and then IRA, and then it was getting. I was actually having to explain to my 5-year-old like what the IRA is, which I wasn't a big fan of, but fair enough. Some people that's their thing. Yeah, I much prefer the songbook tonight. I love this whole singing about past players. It's the one thing that, not really in terms of the football tourists you get at Old Trafford, but that's one thing that the Man United fans have always maintained is singing about past players. I think pretty much every game, or certainly every away game, they sing about Georgie Best still to this day. Still sing about Cristiano Ronaldo every away game. So I'm a big fan of that, celebrating players and celebrating good play. I'd like to see more of it, to be honest.
Well, this is the thing. Obviously, you've got your Irish Rebel songs that you hear at Celtic Park. So that's part of Celtic's songbook. But, when you celebrate ex-players like that, Sean, I just think it shows how creative the Celtic support are. Because rather than singing traditional songs, like the Irish songs, they're singing songs they've made up. They've created them themselves. And then they're pulling ones from the past. There's nothing worse than watching a game of football and hearing nothing but generic football chants, and I sometimes look at teams and think, do you have no tunes of your own? You're singing that generic song that 50 other teams sing. But Celtic fans have always had that creativity, and I think it was celebrated tonight. And I agree. Let's have more of that. Absolutely. James Pearson, 88. I want another 10 minutes just to watch Palma. Beautiful cameo. James, are you winding us up? Roll from the bench, Celtic at their vintage best. I'm not sure if you're on the wind-up, James, but what I would say is he had a wee shot at the end of the game, the last kick of the ball, and forced a save, which would have been a corner had the ref not blown for full time. It's a strange one, and I've said this before when it comes to Palma. I've got nothing against the guy. I think he's a talented footballer, Sean. He's going to leave Celtic and have a really good career elsewhere, and you wish him all the best. But there's something missing in his game. And I think, in fact, I think there's two obvious things that are missing from his game. The first one is pace. And the second one is just that wee bit of dig, that bit of heart that you need if you want to be a Celtic player. I mean, if you're a winger at Celtic and you're running against a defender not getting by him, you can't shrink. You cannot shrink within yourself. You've got to go again, and you've got to find an alternative and sometimes switch the wing. And we've seen Jota doing it. We've seen much better wingers doing that. I don't think he's got that in him. I think he just, if it's not going well for him, that's it. And he'll move on. But there's no doubt there's a player in there. He's a talented footballer, Sean, but he's not going to make it at Celtic.
Yeah, he's got that proverbial cultured right foot, but there's just too much other aspects of his game that are not there that they would need to be a first choice at Celtic. Yeah, he doesn't have the pace of Maeda. He doesn't have. I don't know if I can't remember the last time I ever seen him win back possession from doing it in the same way that Maeda does. I think his first contribution tonight was to ball watch and lose possession. Yeah, and look, even at the where he does get the cross in for the second goal, I was actually like 5 seconds beforehand, like being critical of him because Kyogo makes a run, there's space in behind, and Palma either doesn't get his head up or isn't set to play that cross. So Kyogo's probably frustrated at that as well. So yeah, I think there's physical and mental aspects of his game that are preventing him from being a first choice Celtic player, but the technical ability of what he can do with a ball is not that reason.
And again, it's nothing personal. I just think that Brendan has spoken about cutting the squad, tightening it up. And if you've got guys like, let's say, Nawrocki, Lagerbielke and Welsh, I know that Lagerbielke's on loan, who aren't contributing to the side, move them on, bring in one player of quality. That's the way I always look at it. Odinholm and Kwon, move both of them on, bring one in. You've got the two wingers, Yang and Palma, move them on, bring one in. And you've got a smaller squad then, Sean, but the players are contributing. And, if you're in a situation where you've got a couple of injuries, which we have currently got on the right-hand side, whoever steps in is actually going to contribute. And I think that's where we need to get to. And that's maybe part of the frustration with the Greg Taylor situation, because if you want guys to contribute and to be as effective as that, you're going to have to pay a wee bit more for them, probably. Jungle Lion, always a pleasure to see you. They had to sing the Tierney song. Of course they did. Of course they did. We were waiting all night. It was almost like the encore, wasn't it? They just waited to the big hit. It was like Radiohead singing Creep. They had to leave it to the very end and then pull that one out. The GB are great, says Joe Fulham. And Don't Cash Out says Dundee United are a decent side. That's a good 3 points. 16 clear. They're doing brilliantly this season, Sean. I don't think we really tapped into that pre-match, but for a team to come up from the Championship and to be sitting where they are, I mean, they leapfrogged my tip of the year, Aberdeen. They started off tonight. In fact, they'll still be sitting on the same points as Aberdeen. I think they've done a really, really good job. Jim Goodwin will always be remembered for certain things that happened when he was at Aberdeen, but he's recovered well, hasn't he?
I actually think it's not that uncommon for the bigger, the teams below the Glasgow 2 to go down and to actually benefit from that refresh and come up and actually have a good run at it. I think when Hibs came back up under Neil Lennon, I think they finished third that year. When Hearts came back up under Robbie Newson, I think they finished third. And Dundee United are doing the same this season, bounced back to finish third. I think it is, there must be something to that, like to avoid that stagnation. Aberdeen looked like they were going to do something this year without having to go down, but then they've hit the skids and stagnated again. They're now panic buying and spent like $1.5 million in the last couple of days on players, which is a very strange thing for any Scottish team outside of the top two to do. So it's interesting. But yes, Dundee United's second best defensive record in the league. Flying high, relatively speaking. They do deserve a lot of credit in that sense.
No, they absolutely do. And obviously, Jim Goodwin, a Celtic fan and an ex-Celtic player as well. Sean, 96, KT song at the end, superb, well done. The Green Brigade and Paul Rees. Rap Kuhn and Cotton Wool, see you against Young Boys. Nicholas Kuhn. We'll get an update maybe even after the game and then in the coming days about the extent of his injury. But yes, he's been brilliant, Paul. Absolutely brilliant. So hopefully he'll make a quick recovery. Donald McLeod, James, I think an adult conversation about Palmer, we're going back to James Pearson, who I think's on the wind-up, is genuinely that he's had enough chances and not been up to it. I don't see how anyone can think differently. Yeah, he's had enough chances. I mean, he's been at the club now a year and a half. It's a bit like Yang. People were going on about give him a chance. And then you look at the amount of games Yang has actually appeared in. He's had plenty of chances, Sean. He's maybe not had a run of 12 games in a team, but nobody can have that unless they're performing, which would suggest he's not been performing when he gets the chance. Patrick Kerrigan, yeah, I thought Yang okay in the first half, but second half poor. Sweet 16, good film, yes, and a good Celtic man who plays the lead part in that, Martin Comston as well. We need to get Martin Comston on the show. This is Acsom, don't we? We're recording this week's episode tomorrow. I will be joined by a musician tomorrow, big Celtic fan and a musician. So I will reveal more, maybe get a wee photo and stick it on the socials. DB knew neither the Swiss side nor Aston Villa will be worried about facing this side playing this way. But we know it's different when you step up in a Champions League night at Celtic Park, Sean. You're not going to play the same way. But at the same time, should Celtic be fearing Young Boys? I think they're sitting 9th in the league at the moment in Switzerland. So
I actually think that's an unfair comment. I think it's valid based on the last two games, but I think based on tonight's evidence, that's not a fair comment. I thought we were good tonight. We were playing one-touch football. Fair enough, Aston Villa won't be afraid of us no matter what we produce between now and then. But as you mentioned, Young Boys, we should be dominating that game, and we should be. I think it's going to be very much like a game against Aberdeen at home. It's going to play that way out. Having not watched a lot of Young Boys, just based on the fact that they are propping up the table at the moment in the Champions League, I think it could go that way and should go that way.
Yeah, it should, Sean. And you know what? It's just another reminder of how well the Champions League campaign has gone so far, other than one blip that we're all aware of. Jinky also comes in to say Engels was brilliant. I totally agree with that. Hopefully, shut a few folk up on here, whining about him. Not just on here. I mean, I think the press were on his back. I think there was a lot of that, fellow pros were on his back earlier this season as well. And Seamus McKenna says, Taylor played great tonight, got off his back. How do you think he played after all the discussions over the last couple of days, Sean?
I wouldn't say great, but I thought he was good. Yeah, and he did well in tight windows. The one, like I said, the one scary moment for me that I highlighted earlier was when the player was free and it was in the left back position. But I actually don't think that was Taylor's fault. We ended up with a 3-on-2 in favour of Dundee United. So and Taylor did what he had to do, which was tuck in and leave the man at the back. And that was almost Trusty or Carter Vickers' fault at that point for not being in there. So I don't think Taylor did anything wrong tonight. And I thought in the tight passing windows he was actually quite effective.
That's one thing that might get lost actually in a game like this, because in terms of the attacking prowess of the opposition, they weren't great, Sean. But Carter Vickers was solid tonight again. There was a couple of moments. I mean, another massive block in the box. He's a man mountain, and we had concerns about his fitness, but he's getting a good run of games as well without having to drop out for a rest. So Carter Vickers was excellent tonight as well, in a situation where he wasn't doing much defending. When he was called upon, a wee bit like Kasper Schmeichel, he did it well. We get another 3 points on the board, and we are now sitting pretty 16 points ahead at the top of the Scottish Premiership. Sean, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks again for joining me. I know that you've had a lot of travel and all the rest of it, and it's early doors over in Australia. Everybody else, rejoin us again tomorrow at 12:30. I'll be joined by JP Mason, by which time we'll have looked at the post-match press conferences from the likes of Brendan Rodgers, and we'll be commenting on that. Thanks, everybody, for your support. As always, 2,000 strong here on a Wednesday night. And join us tomorrow once again on A Celtic State of Mind.